so, Chairman Hilton.
Thank you. I will now call the meeting of the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control Board to order. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, we are conducting this monthly board meeting today via video teleconference. First item on the agenda, I will call, see if we have a recognition of a quorum. I will conduct a roll call of board members that are present on this teleconference. When I call your name, please say yes. Steve Sullivan.
Yes.
Dr. Colbert. Dr. May.
Yes.
Thank you. Candace White.
Yes.
Thank you. Keith Joy.
Yes.
Thank you. And Marissa Neal.
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Hamilton, do we have any introductions this morning?
Yes, and good morning, Chairman Hilton and board members. I am pleased to introduce Natalie Nuff, who recently joined APCD as a quality control tech for our air monitoring program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hamilton, do we have any public recognitions this morning?
Yes, Chairman Hilton, we do. Today, I'd like to recognize Keith Talley, who is taking on the role of Chief of Community Building as the former Chief Benson James leaves Louisville Metro government to serve as President and CEO of Derrick Care. As part of this, APCD, the district, is moving from Louisville forward to join the group of community building departments, including Resilience and Community Services, the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, and Metro Parks and Recreation. So we, Keith and APCD, will still continue working together to serve our community and bring about a healthier, more resilient city together. Mr. Talley, with his longtime finance and community building experience and his more recent experience with the district, is really uniquely qualified for this new role, and we're very excited that he's accepted this new position. Please join me in congratulating Mr. Talley.
Congratulations.
Andy, I believe Mr. Talley is with us. Keith, would you like to speak to the board?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Rachel. And absolutely, and the first thing I want to do is to thank the incredible staff at APCD. Work that they have done the entire time that I was there was just incredible. And for those board members and folks in attendance that have a history with APCD, they understand from whence we came and where we are now, and they understand the progress that we've made. Secondly, I want to thank all of the board members. I see a couple of faces that I do not know, but I see some familiar faces, and I just appreciate your support throughout my term with APCD. Your counsel, your advice, your questions, they are all beneficial to the work that we do. You really help to keep us on our toes. You don't let us rest on our laurels. And that is really, you always have the interest of the community at heart. And I think that is the key role for that board. And I just want to thank you and tell you how much I appreciate the work that you do. I don't know that Rachel mentioned it because I was typing and doing some other things, but in my new role as Chief of Community Building, one of the things and that I wanted to make happen, and was fortunate enough to do so, is to have APCD move under our cabinet. I think being part of community building with the Office of Resilience and Community Services, with the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, with Parks and Recreation, is a good fit for where APCD belongs in terms of our work in making this a safer and a healthier community. And so I'm very pleased to have them be part of that cabinet. I think there will be opportunities for each of those agencies to learn from the other and understand how we can each do things that will be beneficial to the folks in Louisville. And so just very pleased about that. And lastly, I will say, I cannot tell you how much I miss seeing you guys, your faces. I have missed these meetings. They became a big part of my life. You know, once a month for 7 years is a long time to be engaged with folks. And so I really do miss that opportunity and hope to have the opportunity to come back and tell you some of the things that are going on in the future. Rachel, thank you for the opportunity. Everyone have a great and blessed day.
Keith, we will take you up on that offer and hope to see you at a future board meeting. So with that, stay well.
Thank you.
Mr. Hilton?
Thank you, Mrs. Hampton. On behalf of the board, Mr. Talley, we want to congratulate you on your new position, and we look forward to you coming visiting us at a board meeting. I think about 7 years ago, you appointed me to the board, so I miss seeing you also. So congratulations. Now we at the minutes. The minutes of the regular meeting held on September the 15th, 2021 were distributed electronically for your review. Are there any changes, upgrades to the minutes by board members?
Not for me.
Hearing none, the board minutes are approved. Thank you. Mr. Gary, has anyone registered to make a comment this morning?
No, sir, no.
Mr. Gary, has anyone provided written comments?
No, sir, no. Yep.
Are there any members of the public that would like to make a statement? If so, please raise your hand. For each person, we'll give instructions on to approach the podium and state name. Or the also the ones that's on the teleconference, if you want to hit *3 on your phone, you will be called upon. Mr. Gray, does anyone wish to speak?
I don't see any raised hands,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. That completes the public portion of the meeting. Unfinished business. There is no unfinished business today. There is no new business. Committee reports. I don't think any committees met. The policy or the strategy committees have met in the last month, so right?
No, sir.
Thank you. We at the director report, Mrs. Hamilton.
So for those of you who've not yet heard, I have been asked to take on the director's role here at the district, and it is a privilege to do so. You know, I deeply appreciate, as Keith does, the hard work that you as board members do in helping APCD and the district fulfill its mission to protect air quality in Louisville. And I look forward to the continued work we'll do together. So with that, into our regular update. The district's current meetings are being held virtually and in person following social distancing and mask guidelines. But again, COVID continues to provide new challenges for us and our community. Please continue to check the agenda each month to be sure you understand how to join us at our meetings and participate in the Air Pollution Control Board's work. So we're still doing our return to work plan with staff teleworking up to 2 days a week. We wear masks in the office, we social distance, wash our hands. Folks on the north and south sides of our workstations are taking alternating Wednesdays off while we're still in the red, just to give us a little bit more spread here within the suite. I've said it for the last several months, feel the need to continue to say, please get vaccinated, get your flu shot, continue wearing masks, socially distancing is recommended, and please call Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness at 502-912-8255 8598, or a healthcare provider for more information about the vaccination. The district is in the process of extending employment offers to 2 Engineer 1 candidates, so I hope that I will be introducing them to you at a board meeting in the near future. This still leaves us with a vacancy in our air monitoring program, but we have a couple of interviews scheduled over the next couple of weeks for the vacant air quality assurance coordinator position. This is a continuously posted position, as we hope to attract that new candidate. Earlier this year, Metro Council approved 12 paid weeks of family leave for employees who welcome a child by birth or adoption. I'm very happy to report that the district has had 1 employee already who's been able to take advantage of this benefit, and that 2 more of our staff will be joining them later this fall. So, as COVID continues to challenge us, life continues to give us great benefits, and we're really excited at the expanding families that we have here at APCD. So, as you're aware, the district receives funding from US EPA to implement the Clean Air Act under Section 105 and maintain our air monitoring network under Section 103 of the Clean Air Act. These are our funding sections of the Clean Air Act. Recently, the Senate Appropriations Committee released its proposed bill for federal funding for fiscal year 2022, and that's the federal fiscal year, calling for an increase of $92 million for state and local air grants, and that's Section 103 and 105, respectively, over fiscal year 2021 levels. And that would be for a total of $321.5 million. This is equal to the President's fiscal year 2022 request and about $10 million above the amount in the House bill. Given the way Congress is today, that $10 million doesn't seem like very far apart, and I'm hoping that when they pass the appropriations bill in December, we'll see this new funding. The Senate proposal specifically calls out some additional types of funding, in particular $142 million for some Diesel Emissions Reduction Act, or DERA grants, which protects public health and improves air quality by reducing emissions from diesel engines. Some targeted air shared grants to the tune of $59 million, $5 million in multi-purpose grants, and then $100 million for 6 environmental justice grant programs. These would be competitive community, state, tribal training and research projects to help extend the capacity of air pollution control agencies to implement programs that address greenhouse gas emissions, improve air quality monitoring and outcomes, and reduce disproportionate exposure to dangerous pollution in environmental justice communities. That's in addition to the $100 million that's already been appropriated under the American Recovery Plan Act. We expect to have details on EPA's use of $50 million of that American Recovery Plan monies to upgrade the air monitoring network nationally, and then another $50 million that will be used for competitive community and agency grants later this fall. The good news out of the bill is that they, like the House, are recommending that the air monitoring grant funding that we receive remain under Section 103. And that's very important to us because there is no match required of the agency to receive those funds. There's been a lot of action right now from US EPA. Sometimes it seems that these come in fits and starts, at least from looking at the information that comes into my inbox. But I want to update the board on a couple of really important things, both locally and nationally. On October 5th of this year, EPA finalized the phase down of hydrofluorocarbons, establishing the allowance, allocation, and trading program under the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act. We've talked about this before. This directs EPA to phase down production and consumption of HFCs in the United States by 85% over the next 15 years. The global HFC phase down of this size is expected to avoid up to 0.5 degrees Celsius of global warming by 2100. The final rule also requires that beginning on October 1st, 2022, as compared with the amount of chemical intentionally produced on the facility line, no more than 0.1% of HFC 23 created on the line may be emitted. Locally, emissions of HFC 23 from Chemours will be captured and shipped off-site for destruction. In discussions with the board earlier this year, I indicated that Chemours would be submitting an application in order to modify their facility to improve their capture efficiency for their emissions of HFC 23, and they have submitted that application to the district at this point. That application is currently being reviewed by the Industrial Permitting Program. At the end of that review, a draft permit will be made available for public review and comment and posted on the district's proposed actions webpage. If members of the public would like to receive a notice of action, including the proposal of a draft permit for Chemours in this case, they can sign up for notices via email. That's our Gov Delivery listserv that many of you already received, on the Subscribe and Stay Informed page on the district's webpage. Chemours will capture their emissions of HFC 23. These will be shipped off-site for destruction at the company's Washington, West Virginia facility. I've spoken several times this year about per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Those are PFAS and PFOAs, which are a group of man-made chemicals that include a large number of chemical compounds, thousands of compounds. Since their development in the 1940s, PFAS have been used to make carpets, clothing, stain-resistant, water-repellent fabrics for furniture, paper packaging for food, non-stick products, Teflon, for example, polishes, waxes, paints, and other materials, including cosmetics. They're also used for firefighting at airfields and in industrial processes. Certain PFAS chemicals are no longer manufactured in the United States, but some can still be imported. More recently, concerns have come to light where these chemicals have contaminated drinking water supplies. They're extremely persistent in the environment and in the human body, which means they don't break down and can accumulate over time. There is evidence that exposure to some PFAS may impact human health. Due to the vast number of chemicals within this class of substances, their past widespread use and current but more limited use in commerce, this is a problem that, like climate change, demands a national solution. Earlier this year, US EPA recognized this and developed a plan of action at that time that added additional monitoring and test methodologies and added many new compounds to the list of chemicals that must be reported to the Toxics Release Inventory. And after that, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill focused on PFAS and PFOA pollution in land, water, and air. To date, the Senate has not taken up this bill, but I will keep the board informed as that work progresses. If it's approved by the Senate and signed by the President, it would require, as a statute, that industry clean up contaminated sites and restrict releases of PFAS pollution from facilities. That's the legislative solution. US EPA, however, is not waiting for that legislative action, and instead, earlier this week, US EPA announced its 2021 to 2024 PFAS Strategic Roadmap. And this is a sweeping regulatory initiative that focuses on research to better understand PFAS exposure and toxicities, and to develop effective health and ecological interventions, proactively restricts PFAS from entering the air, water, and land at levels that can affect human health and the environment, and also require remediation and cleanup of existing PFAS contamination to protect human health and ecological systems. This is a whole of EPA effort that includes public health, technology, regulatory, and legal perspectives. We expect at a minimum that EPA will expand the list of 188 hazardous air pollutants to include new PFAS compounds, and that air reduction strategies will be needed to reduce this pollutant. As a whole of EPA effort, it's also a whole media effort. And so as they're developing programs and policies that will affect sources we regulate, they will also be taking similar actions for water emissions, disposal to land or deposition on land, and they will also be looking at how they manage these chemicals in commerce. So there will be also regulations developed under the Toxic Substances Control Act for these PFAS. And again, there are thousands of these chemicals. US EPA will begin a very developed process in order to evaluate these chemicals and determine which ones need to be addressed first and foremost. Again, I will keep the board informed as we learn more about this process. On October 1st, the Louisville Metro Drive Clean Louisville team hosted Driving Electric Together, a virtual electric fleet showcase. The event was facilitated by our own Michelle King, Director of Program Planning, and Julie Donna, Sustainability Coordinator with Louisville Metro Government Office of Advanced Planning and Sustainability. This was planned and presented in partnership with Evolve KY, LG&E, and the Kentucky Clean Fuels Coalition. The online event featured 8 speakers, and the more than 61 registrants also received links to 4 fleet videos and to a video message from Mayor Fisher proclaiming the week, Drive Electric Week in Louisville. Fleet representatives were also invited to join the Green Fleet Challenge and come along with Metro government as we make progress in electrifying our fleet. I believe that Michelle can add a link in our chat to where folks will be able to view the videos from this event, and one that I hope you'll take an opportunity to look at. Later today, MSD will be appearing at 1:30 this afternoon before Metro Council's Community Affairs Committee, so that members of that committee can discuss the possibility of using the American Rescue Plan Coronavirus Fiscal Recovery Funds to repair untrapped catch basins, a part of the city's aging sewer systems that is causing odor and health concerns in several Louisville neighborhoods. As the board is aware, MSD is required to repair untrapped catch basins in the Park Duval neighborhood as part of its agreed board order resolving certain odor violations from the summer of 2019. Previously, MSD determined that 109 of the 197 catch basins in Park Duval were untrapped, which allowed objectionable odors to enter the ambient air. MSD is also required as part of the agreed board order to evaluate odors from its operations and develop an odor control master plan for the Morris Foreman Wastewater Quality Treatment Center and the collections system. As part of that work required by our board, MSD has subsequently identified other untrapped catch basins throughout the collection system, including 1,043 in 5 West Louisville neighborhoods. Today's Community Affairs Committee meeting will be held virtually, so you can attend by joining the meeting from Metro Council's webpage. There are currently 11 days left in ozone season, and I say this and feel the need to knock on wood, which I don't have any real wood near me, but bear with me for just a moment. We're still cutting grass and seeing summer-like temperatures, but I do want to provide you with an update on where we currently are with demonstrating attainment with the 2015 National Ambient Air Quality Standard for ozone. We, of course, have been designated as marginal non-attainment for the standard, which required us to demonstrate attainment based on our 2018 through 2020 data set. We didn't meet that deadline. We will be bumped up to moderate non-attainment later this summer by US EPA, because that is what the Clean Air Act requires for areas like ours that aren't able to meet the deadline by the statutory timeframe set out in the Clean Air Act. We're not alone in this. Our colleagues in Northern Kentucky will also be bumped up, as will our colleagues and neighbors across the river in Clark and Floyd County. On September 29th, we had a fourth exceedance at our Carruthers Air Monitoring Station. However, the design value for that station remains below the national ambient air quality standard of 70 parts per billion. Similarly, the design value at the Cannons Lane Air Monitoring Station remains below 70 parts per billion. This means that we are currently demonstrating attainment with the 2015 ozone season national ambient air quality standard. Provided there are no more exceedances in the next 11 days, the district will be early certifying our 2019 to 2021 ozone season data and submitting it along with a request for redesignation based on that data to US EPA for their approval in early January of 2022. So, keep your fingers crossed and your toes crossed that the weather forecast continues to be cool and that we don't see any ozone formation in the next 11 days. And then we will keep the board up to date as we certify that data and submit it to US EPA. The redesignation request is a public process, and we'll keep the board informed as we pursue that work as well. I do need to caution everyone that the Clean Air Act is, in my view, a very remarkable continuous improvement program.
It is. It has been.
As an option.
Yes.
Bradley, could you mute? Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. Back to where we are with Clean Air Act. The Clean Air Act is a continuous improvement program. It does require US EPA to evaluate the most up-to-date public health information every 5 years to be sure that current standards continue to protect public health and the environment. US EPA is currently reconsidering the previous administration's December 2020 decision to retain the 2012 National Ambient Air Quality Standards, which are for particulate matter, there are two, a primary standard of 12 micrograms per cubic meter and a secondary standard of 35 micrograms per cubic meter for particulate matter. We're currently well below these standards, but US EPA has indicated that it will likely propose a new standard in the summer of 2022 that may be as low as 8 micrograms per cubic meter. If that standard were to be adopted, Louisville, along with a lot of the rest of the country, would be designated as non-attainment. Non-attainment is not a punishment. It's actually part of the process of that continuous improvement that's built into the Clean Air Act. When you're designated as non-attainment, it requires states and locals to develop the plans and implement the actions that bring an area into attainment. Our decision to employ a multi-pollutant focus during our recent ozone non-attainment work has laid a really good foundation for us if the area is designated as non-attainment for particulate matter in the future. And if you haven't had a chance to review the multi-pollutant stakeholder group report, I really urge you to do so. With thanks to those who served on committees for this stakeholder group and shared their time and expertise, including members of the board, industry, the community, and district staff, will be more ready than ever to continue reducing pollution to meet strengthened national ambient air quality standards that are just simply part of that wonderful continuous improvement plan of the Clean Air Act. So our path forward during attainment is not to rest on our laurels. It's to continue working to drive down pollution. We use a little bit of a different process in that case, and that is here at APCD, we're participants in US EPA's advanced program for ozone and PM 2.5. This helps us pull together expertise from across the nation, borrow best practices that will help us continue to drive down pollution, many times using voluntary and outreach measures so that the area stays in attainment and hopefully is ready for the next time that ambient air quality standard is strengthened, and they will be. Our own environmental outreach programs, including Idle Free, Grow More, Mow Less, and Lawn Care for Cleaner Air programs, continue to play a central role in helping the area meet national ambient air quality standards when we're in attainment and when we're in non-attainment. The Louisville Metro Air Pollution, our Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program encourages residents here in Louisville to reduce harmful lawn-related air emissions by using much cleaner electric and human-powered lawn equipment. I'm happy that this morning my colleague Bradley Coombs, the district's environmental coordinator, would like to share some information with you about a new lawn care for cleaner air grant opportunity. Bradley, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, as Rachel said, we have a new program. Let's see. Yep, here we go. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So here's just the regular old Air Pollution Control District website, but I'm going to link us right here to our new Lawn Care for Cleaner Air Community Grant Program. What this program does is essentially it's a grant program that will award a package of electric powered lawn equipment to a nonprofit agency that is tasked with maintaining property. So we had been talking about putting together some sort of package like this, a program like this for a while, and we're really happy that it's finally up and running. So from here on the website, you can see there's an explanation about the program itself, the tools that are included in the package, which would be a battery-powered mower, a trimmer, a leaf blower, and also an extra battery that would power all these different tools. The tools themselves would also come with batteries, but we wanted to include an extra just in case you needed a little more power to get the job done that you're doing. If you scroll down, you can read a little bit more about lawn care for cleaner air in general, and then also about eligibility guidelines. The grant program is open to nonprofit agencies. That would include community-based organizations, environmental justice organizations, housing advocates, educational groups, so on. We asked that the agency be located within Louisville/Jefferson County. And there are a few other eligibility guidelines here. We also list the selection criteria for how we're going to select the award winner. If you scroll back up here, you can even get to the application. So you'll again here see a little bit of a description about the program, about the grant, the guidelines, the selection criteria, eligibility. If you go to the next page, then you'll find the actual application. It's pretty self-explanatory as far as filling it out goes. Yeah, so like I said, we're really excited about the program. It's something that Michelle and I have been kicking around for, gosh, a couple of years, but it's just taken us a while to get it up and running. So we're, if you know of any nonprofit agency that has to take care of its own property, please, um, please, get them to fill out an application. The equipment that we're giving away is professional powered. It'll rival any gas powered equipment in that range. And we think it's just a great way to promote lawn care for cleaner air, promote the air pollution control district, and just show people, a way that they can, you know, uh, not only a way that they can reduce the pollution that they produce, but also that mitigate the pollution that they are exposed to. So I think that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions about the program.
Does it require the nonprofit to turn in their gas equipment?
We are, as part of the guidelines, we are asking that that the agency be making the switch from gas-powered equipment to electric, but we have not stipulated necessarily that equipment has to be recycled. I mean, ideally, that's what would happen. That's typically what happens when participants get new equipment through the regular Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program. When they want their rebate, a lot of people recycle their old gas-powered equipment. But yes, as part of the grant, we are asking that the agency be making the switch from gas to electric. That shows a commitment on their part to reducing pollution and to sustainability in general, and that commitment to sustainability is part of the sort of selection criteria.
Bradley, this is going to be awarded to one organization, correct?
Yes, so far for this year, we are awarding one agency. We have talked about maybe increasing that number in the future, but for now, I think we'll just kind of see how this year goes and go from there. We'll reevaluate.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bradley, if there are no further questions, thank you so much for sharing that, and please encourage folks to come and take a look and compete for this year's grant.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bradley.
Ms. Hamilton, I want to ask you a question, going back to the ozone. You mentioned there's only 11 days left before the end of the ozone season. Is that mandated somewhere in the regulation, or is that a local or EPA? Because I can't find anything in the regulation that says it ends at the end of October.
So ozone season for us does run from March until November.
Is that in the regulations anywhere in the ABCD regulations?
That's not in our regulations, that's in the Code of Federal Regulations.
Okay.
EPA regulations.
Okay.
Thank
Because
Byron.
Sorry, Rachel.
no, I was just wondering because I was looking for that last night. I couldn't find
I'd be
it.
glad to send you the regulation. It's in the monitoring regulations.
Okay.
Separate Code of Federal Regulations that covers ozone season for emissions reporting.
Oh,
Our sources, our Title V sources, and anybody emitting 25 tons or over has to report their ozone precursors from May through September. So they have a shorter reporting period. That's what's in the Code of Federal
okay.
Regulations.
Because you can still generate ozone in November. I mean, you still got nitrogen oxides, you got NOx, and you got VOCs. The only thing you were probably missing is sun and the heat, right?
That is exactly what
It's a chemical reaction. We don't emit ozone, we generate ozone. And you
Mr.
have NOx and, VOCs every day. You just
You are-
you don't have the heat.
Right, you are absolutely correct about that. You know, what we're looking at with respect to, ozone season, we do have those precursors, ozone and nitrogen oxide. We find that later in the season, with the angle of the sun due to the change in our seasons,
Okay.
we don't have the heat or the sunlight necessary to form ozone.
The
But
formals.
we do monitor for ozone year-round at Cannons Lane. And our ozone season has actually expanded for us over the years with respect to the implementation of those strengthened standards. So I'm knocking on wood again that we get through this ozone season and that we don't see any additional ozone formation and that we go ahead and bring the area back into formal attainment of the standard with US EPA. Before I go on to the last item on my list, are there any other questions for what I may have already covered from board members?
I have a question. It's back to the ozone. So we have 11 days left. Are we really on the cusp of one more exceedance knocks out the average for a 3-year period?
Yes, could be.
Wow.
So it is both the number of exceedances that we have. The way that the standard is derived is explained in the air quality report for each of the pollutants that we report. They're all a little bit different. They do include that 3-year design value, but they're based on different types of averaging information. For ozone, it is a 4th exceedance, and that monitor needs to exceed 70 parts per billion. At this point, simply because it's been a strange fall, I don't know whether you've had to keep mowing your grass, but I sure have. The weather's a little unusual. We've not had a frost yet, and we're still continuing to see some days that approach 80. So at this point, I'm just not willing to say it's over until it's over.
So I know I should know this, but where is the Carruthers monitoring site?
Billy,
Okay.
It's in J-Town, out on, I can't really have a road, between J-Town and Billtown Road,
Oh, okay.
almost out this side.
Okay, thank you.
are there any other questions from board members? All right, with that, on Monday, October the 11th, Carl Hilton, along with Mayor Fisher, leaders from Louisville Parks and Recreation, Evolve KY, the Louisville Sustainability Council, and Louisville Forward celebrated the activation of the newly installed electric vehicle charging station in Tom Wallace Park, part of Jefferson Memorial Forest. As you may remember, the board donated funds from the Air Quality Trust Fund to establish this charging station. And with that, I'd like to ask my colleagues, Michelle King, Director of Program Planning, and Matt Mudd, Communications Specialist, to share more information about that event and present their Air Quality Trust Fund update.
Thank you, Director Hamilton. Good morning, everybody. We're really excited to give you all some updates from that great event. But we're going to start out with just a quick overview of the Air Quality Trust Fund. I know we have some new board members, and for the benefit of those in the audience. So we'll just give you a little bit of context for what we're going to give you an update on. So next slide, please. And go ahead. Yeah, there we go. So what is this Air Quality Trust Fund? The Air Quality Trust Fund was created by state legislature in 1994 with some very specific purposes in mind. So on your screen, you'll see some excerpts from Kentucky Revised Statute, or KRS as we refer to them, 77.127. And it outlines what the trust fund can be used for, things like conducting and funding air quality research and development projects, some special non-recurring air quality projects, and air quality education programs. So some pretty broad categories there. but it also lays out what it can't be used for, and that includes the day-to-day operations of the district. So that, gives us some pretty bright line on where we can't use these funds, but it does also provide a lot of opportunity for the board on where these can be. And it also specifies that these funds are spent by the board itself. So the board determines the use of these, what projects or programs these funds might be dispersed to support. So next slide, please. A little bit more specificity is then added in our district regulation 1.17. That sets out some policies and the procedures for receiving those funds, but also further establishes what can be put in this trust fund. So the board can accept all kinds of grants or gifts and donations. You can accept civil and criminal penalties, but not those that are collected under KRS 77.990. So that includes those penalty fees that are collected through district enforcement actions. So those are specifically excluded from the Air Quality Trust Fund, but there's a lot of other possibility for receiving funds into this for the eventual board to use. So next slide, please. So just to give you an idea of some of the past projects that the board has used these trust fund for. In 2010, the board approved use of Air Quality Trust Fund dollars to provide a necessary match to federal grant funding that enabled APCD to install solar panels at the Cannons Lane Air Monitoring Station. You can see that in the photo there on your screen. Those panels have been in continuous operation since installation and provide roughly 30% of the station's power needs. The Cannons Lane site, as you all should recall, I think, is an in-core site. So we've heard Billy present on our air monitoring network, and the thing that's so special out at Cannons Lane is that everything that we monitor in any of our other sites, plus a whole other suite of additional parameters from pollutants to meteorological parameters and other research data, is all gathered at the Cannons Lane site. So it was considered a special non-recurring air quality project, also supporting some research work that allowed the board to approve use of this funding for that project. And like I say, that has really been kind of an additional feather in the cap, I think, of that in-core site. Not only is it the data that's being gathered there incredibly diverse and important to understanding air quality, but to have renewable energy supporting so much of that station operation has really been a great aspect and really an early adopter of the renewable energy projects here in Louisville. So the board saw great value there in approving those funds. Then several years later in 2016, the board approved funding to Louisville Grows and Evolve KY to fund an electric vehicle charging station at the Louisville Grows Healthy House in the Portland neighborhood. That was considered a special non-recurring air quality project. Certainly we've understand the benefit to air quality that the electrification of our transportation network will provide. And in 2016, again, the board showed foresight in seeing the importance of supporting those. But that also provided an air quality education program there, because in addition to being the Louisville Grows Health office, the Healthy House is also a community space. It connects the neighborhoods that Louisville Grows serves with various programs and opportunities that they provide and their partners provide. So that charging location is part of the educational purpose of the Healthy House, fulfilling their sustainability mission. And as such, it's really gotten good public exposure. And in fact, the photo here of the Healthy House charger and local artist and community advocate Brianna Harlan, who was an AmeriCorps Vista associate at the Healthy House at the time, that's a screen grab from the documentary film Evolve, Driving a Clean Future in Coal Country. That's gotten a lot of play here locally and across the state and even the nation. And the Healthy House charger and APCD's role in its placement was highlighted really nicely in that film. Lastly, in the fall of 2019, the board approved a disbursement of up to $8,000 to fund a targeted air quality messaging campaign and information resources in the 6 neighborhood area that is the subject of the U of L Environment Institute's Green Heart Project. But due to the subsequent pandemic, followed by the departure of key APCD communication and engagement staff, that initiative was not undertaken. So those funds remain available for board use. And that brings us up to 2020 and the board's most recent Air Quality Trust Fund project. And I'm happy to turn it over to Matt Mudd to give you all an update on those activities.
Hi there. So just a brief overview of the project that took place at Jefferson Memorial Forest. So there were the charging station that was installed is 2 chargers as well as some educational signage placed at Jefferson Memorial Forest, Tom Wallace Park. It's in the parking lot there, right next to the Welcome Center for the Jefferson Memorial Forest. It made for a lovely ceremony that Monday morning, so very happy to be there. Stations like these, Stuart Unger explained this in his speaking at the meeting, Stuart Unger of Evolve KY. They're not usually used up to fill completely, but they're used for opportunity charging. So you come there, you top your car off, you add some range on. This is especially helpful for people who, you know, wouldn't normally be able to make the trip out to Jefferson Memorial Forest comfortably or feel as though it's on the edge of their range. So it's really helpful, and maybe hopefully we'll get some more people out in the area. The electricity for the vehicles is provided to the public free of charge. The cost is taken on by parks. And also the station itself is listed on charging station maps like PlugShare that people who drive electric vehicles use to make sure that if they need to top off, if they need a couple miles added on, they'll be able to access it. Even better, this charging station is located in an area of Louisville that had previously been underserved by infrastructure for electric vehicles. So if you take a little look at this map that I got from the PlugShare app, I have it circled down in the bottom. You can see that there's a huge cluster downtown of charging stations, or at least comparably huge. And the new one in Jefferson Memorial Forest is, you know, maybe a person who drives an electric vehicle wouldn't have previously felt comfortable stretching their range to get out there, but now they have that opportunity. Ooh, I went too far. So how this project kind of related to the Air Quality Trust Fund and was a good fit. The transition to electric vehicles will have a direct impact on air quality. I think the thing that gets the most news is, you know, the greenhouse gases, the carbon footprint, things like that, and the effect the transportation industry has on that. But it also, the transportation industry also contributes to the pollutants that form ground level ozone and fine particle pollution, the ones that we're very familiar with here in Louisville. And the educational signage, which I'll show you a picture of in a couple of seconds, that's included. It's on the trail a couple paces away from where the charging stations are installed. It's a perfect complement to the station. And when you look at the goals of the fund that Michelle shared earlier, education projects are high on the list. And this is a perfect opportunity not only to provide a service to the public, but to provide some information to those that are walking by. Projects like this one, even better, are visible. They're very obvious, and the benefit to the public is very clear. It's free. People who are making the choice to better their carbon footprint and to better the air quality of Louisville by buying electric cars are benefited by this. And when the benefit is clear, people become more aware of the trust fund, and people will see the positive benefit that it's making. The ceremony was lovely, so I put a couple pictures in here to show to you. This is Mayor Fisher speaking on the new charging station. Chairman Hilton is in the foreground there, and here is Chairman Hilton speaking. It kind of shows the media presence that was around this and the kind of outreach that we can get by taking part in very public-facing projects like this one. This is a little picture of the station. Like I mentioned, there's 2 parking spots with 2 chargers. Let me know if I'm going too fast, but these are, you know, decorative pictures. This is the charging station in action. someone brought their Tesla and had it plugged in the whole time, so that was pretty cool to see. And if you can just see in the background behind the charger, that is the educational signage when I said it was a couple of spaces away. This is it from the other side. Now, it has just some brief information on it. It's located right on a trail that walks by this parking lot, so anyone who sees them can get some of the answers they need. And as you can see on the bottom right of that educational signage, there's the Louisville Air Pollution Control District logo, as well as some information about where it came from. Up top, you have, some basic stats comparing electric vehicles to gas vehicles, the kind of effect they have on the environment, stuff like that. So that's obviously an important reason why the Air Quality Trust Fund would choose to take on a project like this, is the educational aspect. And here's a lovely picture of all involved at the event. It was a really good time, and everyone was very excited about the positive benefit that this project had. And with that, we can get back to Michelle.
Thanks, Matt. I have to agree. It was a really beautiful day, and a great way to celebrate electric vehicles and the air quality benefits that they bring. And anytime we get to start Monday morning in the woods, I'm all for it. So thankfully, we had great weather as well. And I really want to thank Chairman Hilton for coming out and making some just great remarks that I think helped underscore that air quality benefit as well. So
Absolutely.
looking forward, we do have more to discuss with the board this morning about the Air Quality Trust Fund. So next slide, please, Matt. And you all may recall that in 2019 and 2020, we convened the multi-stakeholder group, and they returned more than 90 recommendations for us. Those recommendations were really covered the gamut from recommendations to the district, to the board, to Metro government, to some of our regulated facilities even, and recommendations for some of our community partners as well. So they took a really broad look at actions that they felt that we could take locally to continue progress, reducing ozone certainly, but also those other pollutants like fine particulates and air toxics. And so, as Rachel mentioned earlier, that multi-pollutant look was really important as we see, certainly from our history here in Louisville and from the foreseeable future, we are always looking for ways to continue reducing those air pollutants, and knowing that we've learned more and more about those health impacts at lower and lower levels, and those national standards and our community's goals for our air quality get really more protective of health as we go forward. So we want to continue looking for opportunities. One of the 5 committees of the multi-pollutant stakeholder group, the Outreach and Education Committee, they returned 29 recommendations overall and voted to prioritize some of those. One of the top 5 highest priorities from that committee was a recommendation to the board to develop an RFP, or a request for proposal process, for the Air Pollution Control Board Air Quality Trust Fund, to increase awareness of the trust as a funding source for potential projects. A kind of complementary recommendation that went with this was to provide a conduit for the community to submit ideas for projects, both to the district and to the board. So with that in mind, we have some general recommendations for you, and you can go ahead on that, Matt, but also an ask for the board this morning. So we would propose to fulfill that recommendation in the spirit of the committee when they made that, to raise awareness of the trust fund and the types of projects that it can fund. We would want to create a web page that would be under the Air Pollution Control Board, and we would highlight the existence of this fund, the types of projects that we've talked about here this morning, but then also create a mechanism so that community members or organizations can submit ideas to the board. We need to determine things like the frequency of that call for project ideas, whether that's continuous or periodic. We have to recognize that the funds that go into the trust fund are not necessarily regular, so the balance kind of goes up and down depending on disbursements and the more irregular deposits into that trust fund. So that's something that we'll consider with you. But we would make a web-based form, probably something fairly similar to what you saw earlier with the Lawn Care for Cleaner Air Community Grant program. And then develop for your consideration a process for the board to review those submittals. So my ask of the board today is really for some feedback and guidance on this idea and the recommendation that the stakeholder group gave us. Is this website presence and increased awareness of the trust fund something that you would like staff to continue to pursue? And if so, we'll provide you with a draft web page and the submittal form and process recommendations for your consideration. But we'd really like to hear back from you all what you think on the idea of raising awareness of the trust fund and creating that portal for project submission. We can stop sharing at this point and see if we have any initial thoughts or reactions from the board.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's Dr. May. There are three different things that kind of going from the presentation as well as to your ask. One is I looked at the plug share map and I did not see anything in the Churchill Downs area, which I was kind of surprised at, so I was thinking, in terms of it being a feature and such, I think that would be a good area to target because that looked empty. The other reason I was thinking about that was because in terms of education or highlighting to the public, I was thinking that when they had the bicycle training for the hike, bike, and paddle, so it kind of goes around the downtown, and I saw that there was one towards the west end, but then, it circles around to the Churchill Downs, and they also have one down towards Iroquois Park. But I thought that it would be a kind of a natural fit in terms of educating people that is where electrical stations are. This is also targeting the youth, so people who are not, who are going to become future drivers and such like that, to know where those things are before they actually access it, so knowing that it's easy and present, I think would be a good thing. So that's an idea that I, in terms of publicizing that whole process and keep making people aware of it. The other thing is that, so in terms of your webpage and such, I always think, it's a good idea, but I'm always at a loss as to what kind of projects would be appropriate. So I know about this one Evolve program, but I think it would be useful to sort of see the whole list of projects that are available to see what is appropriate, so I know of a few, but I don't really have an idea to kind of then stimulate other ideas for projects and such, so.
I think the outreach and education committee that discussed that recommendation, I think that was exactly what they had in mind, Dr. May, that this would be an opportunity to kind of crowdsource those project ideas, because what we might think of or what might come to us from a handful of organizations that know about the trust fund and the board's ability to support projects, that's very limited in the scope of those ideas. And what might we come up with that call for projects and ideas out there?
Because and then this is more like individuals, but I don't know about organization. But there's been studies more with just local, whether or not health should also include having personal air filters. So if if we were to kind of do a mitigation respiration, for the West End population, that they should have available, filtration devices inside their home. So it's not it's just discussion at this point, but that's one of the thoughts I was thinking about. It's well, can they afford it? It's kind of like when they're talking about with heat and, that public housing should have air conditioning, should we be providing air filters for areas that have been, environmental impacts? Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a thought or questions or comments. I think it's fine to put out a web site and solicit ideas for projects. is critical in my way of thinking that you be able to fund these. And I'm curious as to the funding that this has been received in the program, because the number of projects that have been funded in the last 10 years is 3, right?
Right. Correct.
And the amount of money that's in the thing, I don't think has increased since I've been on the board that I'm aware of.
No,
And
the current balance of the trust fund is just under $14,000.
has it increased in when was the last time it had a donation or a receipt of funds?
I believe the last time was a small deposit that was an honorarium that Bellarmine provided for Keith Talley speaking at an event, and he said, put it in the trust fund. So that, is obviously a unique situation. There have been some larger donations that have been made from different corporations, but those are infrequent. And to be honest with you, I think that part of the consideration of putting this out there and raising awareness of the fund was that the committee thought that that might also raise awareness of this is a place where people can make donations that can then be funding the types of projects that this trust fund is specifically designated for. So it was kind of a twofold intent behind the committee's recommendation to create a process for project submittal, was that it would also raise awareness that the fund exists, and if it is a place that individuals, organizations, corporations could put donations in order to fulfill the mission of the fund. I will point out that one of the specific requirements within the Kentucky Revised Statute that enacted this fund is that board members cannot solicit funds for this. So that is something that we would have to be very mindful of, and work with the county attorney to make sure that the mechanism to raise awareness of the fund is not seen as a solicitation from the board members for this fund.
So there cannot be on the website any, I'll use the word solicitation, but
Or endorsement.
Or request for money, because if you're getting a bunch of requests for proposals and you can't fund any of them, to me, in the long run, that's problematic.
We need to do a little bit more research into what that would be able to look like, because we do think that there could be on the website a place to contact us if you would like to donate, but that is not necessarily the board members soliciting those funds. Again, it's something that we want to take a further look at if the board is interested in that, and we will definitely come back to you all with a proposal that the county attorney is comfortable will meet those requirements.
That's good.
Yeah, from my perspective, I'm interested if it has, where the rubber meets the road and boots on the ground, all those kind of those terms are applied. If you can't fund anything, got a problem with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The fund has had as much as $50,000 in it in the time that I was able to do a quick look back. It went back to 2005. The largest disbursement was in support of the solar panel installation. And since then, the disbursements have been $5,000 or less.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, I think it's a great idea. I like the website, as long as there's somebody at APCD who's going to have the time to look through the request and all of the funding that's already been talked about, so people aren't generating a lot of ideas that we just aren't able to fund. But hopefully the county attorney can work out a way to bring in more funds for it. I think that there would probably be interest, but certainly understand that myself and the other board members couldn't ask anybody for the money.
And I think that, you make a very good point about making sure that we are upfront about the availability and the size of the types of projects based on that funding availability. So that will be something we will consider and include in our proposal back to the board.
And is there a cost to create that web page internally? Okay, all right.
We have the internal staff that have learned that website tool, and I laugh and say it's ones and zeros, but really it's time and expertise that goes into it.
Okay, perfect.
Are there any other questions from board members? If not, I'd like to thank Ms. King and Mr. Mudd for your excellent Air Quality Trust Fund project update. I would say personally, the Memorial Forest, Jefferson Memorial Forest charging station, I think it was a great fit for the Air Trust Fund. So we look forward to many more projects, and I'm looking forward to working with the county attorney and see how we can raise more funds for this. Are there any other questions from board members? If not, thank you both for an excellent presentation. Moving on to the air quality data. The staff reports were distributed electronically. Are there any questions regarding the air quality data by board members?
Not that we haven't covered.
Yeah, okay. What about the air toxic report? Any questions or comments regarding the air toxic report? Enforcement status report, any questions or comments? Access mission report, any questions or comments? I did look at the complaint investigation status report. It's a very detailed. It looks like we're going to probably see more people burning leaves. They've already stored if you look at that report. So be on the lookout for November. We'll probably see a lot of violations, people burning leaves. They've already started. But thank you for the excellent summary of that. Are there any questions regarding the lawn care for cleaner air report?
I have to admit, I just did it, we're training in the equipment.
Oh, you did? Great.
Which was amazingly effective economically.
Oh, yeah.
It's great not to have a pull-up to start.
I think you're going to find more people going that route. Yes, more people. I see a lot of folks in my neighborhood going that route. If that's all we have on the agenda, I will now adjourn the regular meeting of the board, and thank you for your participation. The next board meeting is Wednesday, November the 17th at 10 a.m. Again, thank you for your participation and support.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.